Okay, Boker Tov. Today's stuff is Chavtat, and we have a couple of really nice topics to wrap up and to also cover. We were in the middle of a whole discussion of the debate of Rav and Shmuel about here, somebody who trips on some water or a broken vessel, is that considered to be a shore or a bore? Well, that's the classic question about something that you own that's in Rishus rather than a hazard that you still own. Rav says it's a type of a generic shore, and Shmuel says it's a bore, and therefore for Rav you're chayav if it damages vessels, like if it's water and it stained your garments, or it was a rock and it ripped your garments. And Shmuel says no, it's a bore, even though you own it, and you own normally things you own are like animals that go out and gore or whatever. Fundamentally, it's a hazard. It's a bore, and that means that any damage to vessels you'd be exempt. And we spent most of the Chavket Amud Bet yesterday trying to bring like a brightas to prove one way or the other, according to Rav and Shmuel, whether it's a shore and a bore. A related debate that the Gemara is not focusing on now, but will come up later, is then the guy trips over it and hits himself on the ground. So how much are you chayav for the guy that hurts himself on the ground? So Rav says you're exempt. If you tripped over, if my ox pushed you to the ground, interestingly, I would think you should be chayav. Your ox pushed me to the ground. But since ultimately the damage occurred not on the horns of the ox, but on the impact of the ground, Rav says you're going to be patur. And Shmuel says, no, if you trip on it and hurt yourself on the ground, that's like an extension of the bore, and you are going to be chayav. Okay, so those are two debates of Rav and Shmuel. We now pick up in the Gemara on the bottom of Kaf Chet Amud Bet, and the Gemara says like this. Amar Rabbi Linzer. It is, the line starts with the word sluchiso, and it is 5, 8, 10, 15 lines from the 15 lines from the bottom. Well, not just before the two dots. 15 lines from the bottom. Sluchiso. Okay, so it says in the middle of that line. Amar Rabbi Linzer. Lo shanu ela shenitkal be'evan v'nishov be'evan. What is the case that when you trip over the stone, you're chayav? If you trip over the stone and bang on the stone. Now, as we just said, trip over the stone and bang on the ground, that's a debate of Rav and Shmuel. But everybody would agree you trip over the stone and bang on the stone, you're chayav. Okay? But let's say a case we haven't discussed. Nitkal be'karka v'nishov be'evan. Okay, there are three cases, right? There's tripping on the stone and banging on the stone, you're chayav. Tripping on the stone and banging on the ground. The stone was the hazard, like a normal bore is a hazard, but the thing that did the damage was the ground. And then there's a third scenario. You tripped over your own 2 feet and you banged your head on somebody's stone that they left in the middle of the road. Okay, so the stone didn't act as a hazard. It acted as a thing to create the damage, but it didn't create the damage as like something going out and goring, like an ox. Okay, what would be the story there? So let's assume, I don't know, let's say I tripped over my own 2 feet and I impaled myself on the horns of your ox. Okay, so presumably you'd be exempt, right? But I don't know, if your ox didn't have a right to be in the middle of a Rishus Harabim, if your stone didn't have a right to be there, even if I was the one that sort of began the act of hezek, or the act of tripping, right, or stumbling, how much are you chayav if you actually impact with my thing that shouldn't be there? So he says, aval, so let's do that again. Nitka b'karka v'nishov be'evan, patur, you'd be exempt. All right? The thing, whether it's a bore or a shore, it has to basically be the thing that does the act, begins the act of damaging. Not that you started the process and then banged into me. Now, we are going to see, by the way, I should say, in about a minute, we're about to look at an important debate whether nitkal is posheya or nitkal is onus. It's so fascinating, right? The same way like we had a discussion, are you supposed to watch where you're going or not when you step on something in the middle of the street? So when you trip, is it because you're just you're careless and you trip there? And it happens sometimes, you're exerting the normal amount of care, and nevertheless you slip and you trip, okay? So if you say that tripping is posheya, you certainly understand why you'd be exempt, right? I'm negligent. I shouldn't have tripped. It's pshiat hanizak. It's contributory negligence. All right, but he's not even discussing that. Maybe even if I'm an honest, you're going to be exempt because in the end of the day, your thing was totally passive, and I basically impaled myself on your thing. Okay, so he says, "Abo, let's need kabgar v'nishav pater." Kiman, who is that going like? The low Rabbi Nosson, not like Rabbi Nosson. Now, what Rabbi Nosson says is, let's say Michael's ox goes ahead and pushes me into Hillel's bore. Okay, so who do I collect from? So Rabbi Nosson says that basically, if I can't, well, whoever I can. If I can't collect from Michael, I can collect from Hillel. Okay? So there's a case where Hillel's bore only functioned as a passive sort of thing that was impacted upon. It didn't push me, it didn't cause me to trip. And nevertheless, it's considered to be a participant in the act of me being damaged. Okay, so the Gemara says, so let's say it was Michael's ox. Let's say it was my own 2 feet, and I tripped and I fell into Hillel's bore. So he says, well, according to Rabbi Nosson, if his ox scores it, Hillel is participant in the damage. Then when I trip on my own 2 feet and I fall into his bore and I fall on his rock, he's also a participant in the damage. That's also considered a ma'aseh. Now, of course, it's a little bit different, right? Because you could say, even bracketing the question of whether I was negligent, when it starts by an act of damage defined by a goring ox, other things could be seen as sort of being a part of participating in that act of damage. When it starts as me tripping over my own 2 feet, even if there's no negligence, then that's not an act of me being damaged. That's just an act of, something happening to me. And the rock or the bore, which is totally passive, you might say, is not considered to be doing an act of hezek. Okay, so I think you could easily distinguish between the goring ox, where there's an act of damage that was initiated, and tripping over my own 2 feet. But the Gemara compares it. And it says this would not be like Rabbi Nosson. According to Rabbi Nosson, the owner of the bore would have to pay. The owner of the stone would have to pay. Some say, don't say only tripping on the stone and banging in the stone, you're chayav. Don't think that if you trip on the stone and bang yourself, trip on the ground and bang yourself on the stone, you're going to be exempt. Even if you trip over the ground and bang yourself on the stone, you're chayav. Like Rabbi Nosson. And that seems to be the second and concluding position of the Gemara. So that's quite surprising. Number one, it assumes that nitkal is onus, that tripping, I'm not negligent for my own tripping, because if I am negligent, then it's contributory negligence. And number two, it assumes that rather than looking at that whole thing as just an accident, right? And even with Rabbi Nosson, there's no beginning of an act of mazik. It begins with an accident. Right, and even though it begins with an accident, nevertheless, we view the stone that shouldn't be there as having done a ma'aseh mazik. So it's quite interesting. When the Torah is mechayev you for bor, assuming we call the stone a bor, we have 2 scenarios. It's a hazard without doing the act of damage. You trip on the stone and you damage yourself on the ground. Or it does the act of damage without functioning as a hazard. Right? Those are 2 halves of what a bor normally is. Okay, and according to Rav, you could ask the same question about a shore. Yes.
Okay, so I want to understand also this bor, which it makes no difference if I put it there intentionally or not, does it?
Well,
let's say I'm walking
negligently or not.
Negligently or intentionally.
Yes.
I'm walking. It makes no difference.
Well, no, it does make a difference if you don't have to be intentional, but you have to be negligent. We're going to get to that.
So let's say I'm walking, something falls out of my backpack. I have no time to even.
Right, then you're exempt, and that's about what we're about to get to that. Oh, yes.
And lastly, like about the water, what I found interesting is that, they differentiate whether you're mafkir or water or not.
Right.
Wouldn't we assume that automatically gets hefker? Like, what are you going to do? Gather it like from the.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Right. I agree with you. No. There are cases where it's taken for granted you're mafkir. Why the Gemara? You don't have to do an act of being mafkir. That is true. Why the Gemara does not assume that to be the case by the water, I don't know. Okay. Now, Rabbi, we're going to get to exactly those types of cases right now. So now the Mishnah says, so we have the Tana Kamma of the Mishnah that we're going to find out in a minute is Rabbi Meir, that says your pitcher broke in the Rosh Hashanah and somebody tripped on the water or tripped on the shards, then you're going to be chayav. And Rabbi Yehuda says you're only chayav if you intentionally or intentional. So the question is, what does intentional mean? And the real question that the Gemara is going to ask is pretty much exactly what Micah was asking, which is, 1 minute, why when my pitcher broke am I chayav? What maybe it was all an anus. It was an accident. Maybe I didn't have time to remove the shards. And if I make a bore by anus, I'm not responsible for it, right? I presumably at least need a certain degree of negligence to be digging that bore, to be creating that hazard. So that's exactly what we are going to look at. Let's take a look. Okay. So the Gemara says like this: Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'miskavin chayiv. Only if you intended are you chayiv if somebody trips over your water or your shards. What's meant by miskavin? Amar Rabba, b'miskavin lohorida lamata miksefo. What you're not intending to break it. I mean, man, then you're really like a Russia. You're breaking and creating an intentional hazard. No, you're just intending to take it off of your shoulder, and then it slips out of your hand and it breaks. Okay, so that's the thing. But the point is that at least was a more of a fault than if you were not even trying to take it off of your shoulder. You're just walking with it on your shoulder, it fell off. That's like an honest. But when you're taking it off, obviously, at that moment of transfer, you have to be paying it, right? That's when accidents happen, at that moment of change and a transfer. So then there's a certain degree of negligence. Okay, so what that is saying is, for Rabbi Yehuda, he's saying you need to have some negligence in creating the bore, if it's a total honest, you're putter. But that would sound like, according to the Tana Kamma, even a total honest, you're chayev. So that's what the Gemara asks. So the Gemara says, "Amalei Abaye." 1 minute. You would say Rabbi Meir would say you're chayev even if like the picture sort of like melted in your hands, like just sort of collapsed, fell apart, like we're an honest, right? So Amalei, yes, Rabbi Meir afilu ozna biyadam. It's a great image. There you are. You're holding on to the ear of the of the picture, and then the whole picture collapses, and you're left holding the ear. Yes, you're chayev even if you are an honest. It's your bore. Okay, Amai, says the Gemara. Honest who? Why? You're totally blameless. It's an accident. You have no negligence at all. Va'onus rachmana patre, and the Torah exempted somebody with onus. Tichsiv. This is a woman who's raped, and it says, don't do anything to the woman who was raped. She's not to blame. It was the raper. Of course, for us, this is like obvious, but, in the ancient world, and even today, you hear like Middle East or whatever, it's not like the woman who's raped. She's the one that's blamed. Like she brings shame on the family. The Torah is very radical. The Torah says, no, she was blameless, So that's telling you that if somebody is blameless, they can't be held responsible. On a list, you say, that's when it comes to a capital crime. Like maybe when it comes to an issue of a crime, if you're blameless, you can't be prosecuted. Maybe you're chayiv by nizikin. Now, let's just pause for a moment and say, is that crazy? Why should I be chayiv if I'm blameless? But maybe not. Maybe there's an idea of strict liability, right? At the end of the day, my water caused you to trip and be hurt. Why should you be the one to lose out? It was my water that did it. Let me be the one to lose out. Right? The guy who serves says, why should I be the one to lose out? It's your water that did it. You should be the one to pay for it. Right? Sometimes, there's a benefit to society of having rules of strict liability. And by the way, we have this by Adam Hamazik. Right? I'm putting aside Tosfos, who says it doesn't mean it. Okay, Adam means whenever I do it, I pay for it, even if I'm blameless. So maybe the same is true by a bore. Maybe even though I'm blameless, maybe that's, Rabbi Meir says, your bore, you're chayav. Okay, you don't need any negligence. You were the one who made the bore. Okay, so if you were to say that, but you can't say that because we teach it a brisa. Nishbura kado v'lo silko, naflo g'malo v'lo hamido. If your pitcher broke and you didn't remove it, or your camel fell down and you didn't get it to stand up, Rabbi Meir b'chayev b'hezikan, v'chachamim omrim patur. Rabbi Meir says you're chayev, and the chachamim say you're patur b'din adam b'chayev b'din nisham. So that's like the case in the Mishnah. Your pitcher broke. We had a nice example of your camel. Rabbi Meir says you're chayev. The chachamim say you're patur. Now maybe that's a case of anus. How does that prove to you whether we're talking about a case of anus or not? Let's look at the next because we have two other cases that bracket it. Umodim chachamim l'Rebbi Meir. The chachamim agree to Rebbi Meir. The avnus akinu masa'o. You're again that stones, knife and bundle. Sheinicham barosh kago. You put it at the top of your roof. V'nov l'baroch mitzuya. They fell in an expected wind, a common wind. V'ziku, they damaged. Shu chayav. That you are chayav. So in the case in Rosh Hashanah. So they, on the one hand, everybody agrees that you're chayav when there's negligence, right? Ruach mitzuya is the classic definition of negligence. So everybody agrees you're chayav when you're negligent. How about Rabbi Meir? What would he say? Umoda Rabbi Meir l'Rabbanan, and Rabbi Meir would agree to the Rabbanan that you're exempt. Let's say you put your pictures on the rooftop, or whatever those are. Not pictures. What are those called? Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter. Bottles. You put your bottles on the rooftop. To dry them out. They fell in an unexpected wind. And they did damage to patur, that you're exempt. So look at this. This breita basically is a great breita. It situates the debate between the two poles. Everybody agrees if it's ruach mitzuya, meaning you're negligent, you're chayav. Everybody agrees if it's ruach she'ein mitzuya, you're anus, you're patur. They're debating when your thing broke, when your picture broke, which presumably means we see the case of your picture breaking as a middle case. as quasi-negligence or questionable. Which line do you put it over? Do you put it on the negligent side of the line or on the honest side of the line? So that's the case they're debating. So you cannot say that Rabbi Meir says you're chayav for a board that's made by honest. Okay, here it's clear that you're only chayav for Rabbi Meir in a middle case. The debate is a middle case. So this is going to help us understand what the debate is. So let's take a look.
So when you say Ishma Kara also Kol, I mean, it means like after a reasonable amount of time. But like,
well,
how much time?
Yes, I'm going to get back to that. Okay, I promise you, I'm going to get to that. Okay. By the way, I should also point out, and I don't want to complicate this, but I will just point out as a footnote that a person could have made the difference that in the case of not picking up your picture and not picking up your camera, we're dealing with the case of boar, right? I didn't pick it up and somebody tripped on it. Whereas the case of something that's falling from the rooftop and does damage, right? That might have been a different type of thing. That might have been an Aish or something like that. But let's bracket that. The Gemara is not going there. Okay, so the Gemara understands that we've situated the debate of Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim about the picture and the camel between the two poles. All right, so let's take a look. So what's the debate going to be about? Ella Amar Rabbi. So Rabbi says, "Betarki, please." They debate two cases. Please b'shas nefila, when the thing is falling, you're falling like your picture fell out of your hand. Okay. And then it damaged something in its fall. After it fell and somebody slipped on it. Okay. Now, what's the question about when at the moment that it fell? I tripped, the picture fell out of my hand, and it hit Michael. What's the question? So that's the question of benitko poshea, whether tripping is considered to be negligent or not. Okay. Mar savar nitko poshea, Mar savar nitko la poshea. One says it is negligent, and the other says it's not negligent. So basically, what the Gemara says is, right, here you have the case of Ruach Mitsuya, which is Pshia, which is the definition of Pshia. Oh, do I have it on top?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Okay, except there I use this Gneven Aveda. But I'll take off the Gneven Aveda part. Okay, excellent. Okay, so you have Ruach Mitsuya, which is full Pshia. You have Ein Mitsuya, okay, which is considered to be honest. So those are two extremes. So here everybody agrees when it fell by Ruach Mitsuya, everybody agrees you're potter. Here when it fell off the rooftop by a Ruach Mitsuya, everybody agrees you're chayav. Okay, and the debate is, right, what happens in the case of nitkal? Nitkal, case of when you trip, is somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. You tripped over your own 2 feet, and your picture fell down.
Well, that's
okay?
different than
now, the Gemara seems to include, in the nitkal, if we're still dealing with kaving lahorida, the Gemara seems to include in the nitkal not just tripping over my own 2 feet, but transferring a picture and it's slipping out of my hand. Those types of things where you say, like, we all know those types of things at home, right? You're passing something and it falls and it spills or whatever. Like, was it an accident or were you not being careful? Right? It's a little bit of both, okay? So those types of things of nitkal, either slipping on your own 2 feet, the thing slipping out of your hand or whatever, is between those two extremes. So the question is, where do you draw the line? So Rabbi Meir draws the line here, right? Rabbi Meir says it's on this side of, that's what Rabbi Meir says, right? Rabbi Meir says it's on this side of Pshia, and you're chayav, right? And, and Rabbi Yehuda draws the line here, and he says nitkal's on that side, right? And you're going to be putter, okay? So it's always the question: are they debating how negligent the person is, or where to draw the line? All right, but either way, the point is that the debate is in the case of slipping. That's one debate. Everybody agrees if you're an honest, you're putter. If you're a pshir, you're chayav. The question is, the picture slipped out of your hand. You tripped over your own 2 feet. Are you poshea or are you honest? Which side of the line does it fall on? Okay, that's the debate. Mar savar nitkal posheahu, mar savar nitkal lav posheahu. Notice it doesn't say honest; it says lav poshea, right? Because there's obviously there's not enough negligence. There is a certain degree of carelessness, but not enough to make you a poshea. Okay, you're not poshea. So that's the debate. Okay, well, please, that's debate number one. Now, we should have just ended there. That would have explained everything very nicely. But Rabbi complicates it by saying there's another level of the debate as well. Okay? Now they also debate after it fell, and now you have your broken shards and you haven't picked them up. Okay? We assume that after it fell, you're just sort of like, that's it. I'm not going to bother with it. I'm going to pick up my broken shards and my spilled water. Like this is what Michael was saying. It's presumed that you're just mafkir. All right, you're mafkir after it broke, but you're mafkir after it broke, and then somebody slips on it. Are you chayiv now? Mar Savar, I'm sorry. Mar Savar mafkir nizakav. I will discuss it. Yes, it might be. Mar Savar mafkir nizakav chayiv. You're chayiv. And Mar Savar pater. One says you're pater. Now, I would need to pause to explain to you two ways of understanding mafkir nizkav, which is going to be made explicit in the Gemara in a minute. Okay, there is one scenario which is that basically, let's say this thing fell out of my hands out of negligence. Okay, we agree that it was negligent. It fell out of my hands, and now I am going to say, like, oh, you know what? At this point on, I am basically. Let me see how I would say this. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's start the other way. Let's start about what would be the story if I was not mafkirit. If I was not mafkirit, and it fell out of my hand, certainly if it was posheya and it remains mine, I'm chayiv if somebody trips on it. Let's say it fell out of my hands by onus and it's there, and I wasn't posheya. Fine, no fault. And if somebody got tripped on it right away in the next 2 seconds, I also would be blameless. But if I kept ownership of the object, let's say, I don't know, my knife, not my thing that's now little shards or whatever. My knife fell out of my hands. It was a complete accident. For the first moment that it fell and the first few seconds afterwards, I'm exempt. But afterwards, if I just leave my knife there and do nothing, I'm negligent and I'm chayav. It's my knife. I should go ahead and pick it up and remove it. And if I have a chance to remove it and I don't remove it, then I'm chayav. Right? So we can all understand that. Even if it fell, the onus, if I retain ownership and it's still mine, and I have the opportunity to remove it and I didn't, then my leaving it there is negligent. Okay? So that's a case of, everybody with me here? Okay, so that's a case of nefila onus. Okay, it fell to onus. So from the moment it falls till you have a chance to pick it up, here you have a chance to pick it up. You have a chance to pick it up, okay? So until you have a chance to pick it up, you're going to be pater. Now you have a chance to pick it up, okay? So now it goes like this. If you still own it, you're chayiv.
Well, it depends on what, right?
What?
If you're bor, Adam, or Kalim, right?
So it doesn't matter. You had a chance to pick it up. You own it. You're supposed to remove it. You're chayiv, okay? But let's say it fell out of your hands ba'onus, okay? And then you said, forget it. I'm mafkir. I don't need it. I'm leaving it. Okay, my stupid rock. I don't know what I do carrying the rock anyway. Okay, I don't want it. Okay, so then you didn't make the bor, but the pshia. The bor was made by onus, and now if you were mafkir it before you had a chance to pick it up, you had no responsibility to remove it. Okay, so therefore, if you were mafkir in that case, then you're going to be pater. Okay, so you're pater here because you're not to blame. Here, because you own it and you could remove it. But if you were mafkir it after it fell and it didn't fall at your blame, you're going to be exempt. Okay, so that's the case that everybody agrees to.
Isn't it
mafkir? What?
Isn't it being negligent by leaving it there?
No, because why is it you are responsible? You could say the fact that it was your thing to begin with means you're responsible to remove it, even if you weren't to blame that it fell there. You're right. You could have said that, but we don't. We say if you weren't responsible at the moment that it fell, and then when it became an opportunity to remove it, it was no longer yours. So then you had no moment of being responsible for it. Okay? So that's mavkir nezakav la'achar nefilat onus. Everybody agrees that in that case, you're going to be pater. Okay? Would you wait? Okay, we are going to get to it. Trust me. That's that case. Now, let's say it was nefilat pshia. Okay? So it fell b'pshia, okay? So you're posheya. So here you are, you're chayiv, because the bor was made b'pshia. Okay, now you have a chance to remove it. I mean, it really shouldn't matter. You're posheya all along. So you should say, whether you're mafkir or you're not mafkir, you should say you're chayiv. You made the bor, right? You made the bor b'pshia. Who cares if now you own it or not? When I dig a well in Rosh Hashanah, I don't own it. I made it. Okay, so if you made it, whether now you continue to own it or don't continue to own it, you should be chayav. So logically, we should say mafkir nezakav lachar nefilas pshia Tfilas Pshia, you should be chayav. That's what should be logical, okay? So, we said that the debate of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda was whether when you fell, you're considered to be posheya or onus. Yes? Everybody with me?
Yeah.
So you could have said that if they're also debating a case of mafkir, your mafkir after it fell, that's really just an extension of the initial debate. If you were an onus when it originally got made, and then you were mafkir it, then you continue to be potter. If you were a posheya when it originally fell, and you were mafkir it, then it doesn't matter. You continue to be chayav. That will be an approach of Rabbi Yochanan in a minute. That's really not two debates. It's really all one debate, whether you are an onus or a posheya. Okay, but what Rav is saying, or Abaye is saying is, Abaye is complicating the matters. If this wasn't complicated enough, Abaye is complicating the matters. And Abaye is saying, even if you were negligent when it fell, if you're mafkir it, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're potter. Why? That's crazy. I made it. If I dug a well and I mafkir, would I be potter? And the answer is, or I didn't own it to begin with. I dug a well in Rosh Hashanah. And the answer is, according to this, yes. But there's an opinion that says that the only time the Torah said you're obligated for digging a well is if you dig it in your domain, right at the edge of Rosh Hashanah, so it's a hazard. But this is totally ironic. If you dig a well in the middle of a Rosh Hashanah, where you don't own it, you're potter. That understands that the obligation of a bore is a type of a mammon hamazik. It's not just that you created a hazard, it's actually a type of a mammon hamazik. So this is an opinion that's saying that Abaye is saying, number one, they debate when it fell, if you're a posheya or you're onus. Okay, and what happens if somebody got damaged exactly at that moment? In the few seconds while it was falling, or the few seconds after it fell. Then we have to decide, are you a posheya or an onus? Rabbi Meir says you're a posheya, and Rabbi Yehuda says you're not posheya. But then we have to say, even if you were negligent, Rabbi Yehuda would exempt you if you were mafkir it, because Rabbi Yehuda says you're not chayav on a board that you don't own. Okay, which is like totally a completely unrelated debate and seems very arbitrary. So let's read that, okay? Mar savar nitka posheya, we're going to read it again. Umar savar nitka la posheya. So if somebody got damaged immediately as it was falling or in the few seconds after it fell, then that's the debate of whether you're negligent or not negligent. Rabbi Meir says you are negligent, Rabbi Yehuda says you are not. Okay, and pligi la'achar nefila, they also debate after it fell, and here what's missing, but what the Gemara will clarify in a minute means, even if it fell with negligence, they debate after it fell, but Mafkin Nizakov, Mar Savar Mafkin Nizakov, Rabbi Meir says, I don't care that you're Mafkin Nizakov, if it fell with negligence, you're going to be Chayav. Umar Savar, Rabbi Yehuda says, Putter. No, even if it fell with negligence, if you don't own it anymore, you're Putter on a board that you don't own. Okay, so Umar says, Umimai, how do you know this? Miniktani Tarti, because the Mishnah says two cases. Huchlak echad b'mayim, o shalak b'charisi. You slipped on the water, or you got yourself hurt on the shard. Hainuhach. Why did it have to give both scenarios? I mean, give me a break, whatever. It's just a little bit, but okay. A little, illustrating, but okay, a little color. El alav hachi Kamma, to give you two cases. Huchlak echad b'mayim b'shas nefila. You slipped while it was falling. Now, it's a little funny. How do you slip while the water is falling? Which basically means that you have to understand that while it's falling means as it's falling and in the few moments after when you don't yet have a chance to remove it. So then your fault is all defined by that initial falling, not that, you should have removed it. Okay? So one scenario is somebody got damaged in the first few seconds afterwards, and therefore it's a debate of whether you were negligent when it broke, or were you not negligent? Is it your bore or not your bore? Right? So that's scenario number one. Or the guy got damaged in the shard after you had a chance to remove it. Now, why is you debating after you had a chance to remove it? So you could say it's an extension of the same debate, okay? But no, but what he is saying is, even if, like it's a different scenario, which is such a hard way to make it, even if it was a case where we can concede that it fell with negligence, Rabbi Yehuda would still say you're exempt because it's no longer a bore that you own. Yes?
Is that anybody talk? I mean, water you can't clean up.
Right.
There's no distinguishing between something that's possible to.
That's an interesting point. Like, if it would really not be possible, like, I don't know why it's not possible. You know, you could
Get a
get
mop.
a towel, get a mop, or whatever. But if it's really not possible, then you're right. Then if you were not negligent when it fell, then there's no negligence now because there's nothing. You can't put a triangle. You can't stand there and warn people. If it's really true that there's no negligence now, then you'd be continued to be exempt. Okay, so the Gemara says like this: since our Mishnah is talking about two cases, Bryce and Nami Batarti. The Bryce, which remember talked about the picture and the camel, okay, is also talking about both scenarios. Now, why we don't say the picture is one and the camel is another is interesting. We're going to say both the picture and the camel of the Breita are talking about both scenarios, when it's falling and after it fell. Okay, Bryce and Nami Batarti. Bishlema Kado. So by the case of the picture, I can get both scenarios. Mishkachasla, obishas nefila. Either it fell out of your hands, you tripped, it fell when you were taking it off your shoulder. So that's one debate. Were you negligent or not? Rabbi Meir says you were negligent, that's considered negligence, and the Rabbi Yehuda says it isn't. Or it's after it fell, and then you were mafkir and you didn't clean it up. Okay, whereas even if you were negligent, Rabbi Yehuda says you're exempt because you have to own the boar. So that I get. El Kamala, but your camel, I get the scenario of the camel after it fell. The mafkir nevelato, which is funny. Your camel fell, and because why are you being mafkir your camel? Because it fell and it died, and you're mafkir the carcass. Even that, why you mafkir the carcass? Presumably it's worth some good money. Turn it into dog meat or something. Use the leather. Anyway, it's a very funny scenario. Anyway, that I can get. Okay, so even though you were negligent, Rabbi Yehuda says you're exempt because you don't own the boar. Ella b'shas nefila hechin. How about while it's falling? Now, why is that? What's the big problem? The problem is not that they can't understand that a camel can fall on someone and hurt them, but the whole debate was when you trip and when you slip, are you negligent? Right? When I'm taking it off my shoulder and it slips out of my hand, am I negligent? When my camel slips, it's assumed that that's a different discussion. Like, my camel normally watches where it's going. Animals are very good about that. What am I supposed to do? Watch that the camel isn't stepping in a puddle? So if a camel actually slips, presumably that's an onus. So how do you have a case of debating whether it's negligent when the animal slips? It's a good question, okay? I told you that story, right? About the case about when I was horseback riding with this woman, and she was like, we saw these people on these sand buggies, and I said, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. She said, I would never do that. I said, why? She says, the sand buggy can go over a cliff. A horse will never go over a cliff. So when a camel slips, presumably that's an onus. How can you be debating that case? So the Gemara says, okay, you were going through water, basically where the way Rashi explains this is, like water flooded the street, and you were crossing across the water that was flooding the street. So you were negligent taking your camel across that water. So the Gemara says, okay, but remember, it's a debate whether you're negligent or not. Hechidami, what's the case? If you could go around, detour, poshehu, then everybody should agree you're negligent by going through the water. If you're stuck in the middle of Rosh Hashanah and there's no choice but to go through the water, anasu, so you had no choice. So, okay, still, what's the scenario where they could be debating whether you're negligent when your camel falls down? You tripped over your own 2 feet. And then your camel tripped on you. Now, it's not you tripped and you knocked over your camel. That would be a pretty good trick. Yeah. But it's actually you tripped and fell to the ground, and then your camel tripped on top of you. So it all was because of your initial negligence. So it's the same debate of your negligence.
I mean, the least of your problems is going to be...
Exactly. You probably have a broken back. Anyway, okay. So because the Gemara needed to read both cases both ways, we had to discuss them. But bottom line is, what Abai is saying is, well, the basic debate of the Mishnah, I think we could agree, is when something falls out of your hand, are you negligent or not? And that would determine the period, even immediately following, the falling out of your hand before you have a chance to pick it up. Now, if you are not negligent, nevertheless, if you still own it and have a chance to pick it up afterwards, you're going to be chayav after that moment. Okay, but one debate is, are you negligent when it falls? Abai introduces a really conceptually completely unrelated debate that even if you are negligent, Rabbi Yehuda would say you're exempt if you no longer own it. Why is that? you only are chayiv for a bor that you own. And now the Gemara is just going to read that into the Mishnah. Let's take a look. Gemara says like this. Okay. Mavkin izak of my mitkavenika. We get how you read the Mishnah when Rabbi Yehuda says only if you're mitkavein, means only if you're trying to move it off your shoulder and then it slips out of your hand, then you're negligent, okay? But if you're, or excuse me, actually, no, now what we're saying is that according to Rabbi Yehuda, only if you're intending to break it, right? But if it's a normal slipping, you're actually not negligent. That would actually be the case of the first part of the Mishnah, that Rabbi Meir says a normal slipping is negligent, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, only like an intentional breaking, only then would you be chayiv. That explains the first case. But how about where do you read this mitkavein issue into the question of whether when you're mafkir it after it fell? So the Gemara says, what mitkavein ika? So Amar Rav Yosef mitkavein liskot b'charaseha. V'chein Amar Rav Ashi mitkavein liskot b'charaseha. What this mitkavein means is something else. It broke with negligence. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying, if you want to intentionally maintain ownership over it and it remains yours, then you're going to be chayiv. But if you no longer want to maintain ownership, and it sounds like the default is that you won't, you have to intentionally want to maintain ownership. If you no longer want to maintain ownership, then you don't own it, okay? So we now have two different debates going on in the Mishnah. One is when it falls, the Kamma says you're negligent, and Rabbi Yehuda says you're only negligent if you're intending to break it, or there's real negligence. And then the other debate is, even when it fell with negligence, Rabbi Yehuda says you're only going to be chayiv if you continue to own it. If you don't continue to own it, you're going to be patur. You're only chayiv for a bor that you own. Okay, that's a little complicated because the second debate really has nothing to do with the first one. The next approach will be an easier one. Let's take a look. Yes.
So the classic bor is you dig a hole in the Rishut Rabbi.
Right.
Nobody would own that.
Right. So according to this, Rabbi Yehuda would say you're not chayiv for that bor in Rishut Rabbi. You're only chayiv for a bor you dig right at the edge of Rishut Rabbi that you own. Okay, it's completely bizarre, but he says the basic
I'm not missing it.
The basic chiyuv for a bor is mamon hamazik, not a hazard. Okay. All right. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. Rabbi Elazar Omer. Now that's that's Rabbi. He says they debate when it fell and after it fell. Two different debates. Rabbi Elazar Omer b'shas nefila machlokas. They debate when it fell. So okay, when it fell, that's a nice explanation. Only the immediate question of are you posheya or not. Let's make it nice and simple. One issue at the time it fell and immediately afterwards, are you posheya or not? So the Gemara says, but what is Rebbe Lezer saying after it fell? Everybody would say that you're exempt. If Rebbe Meir says you're chayiv, where does Rebbe Meir say you're chayiv? Because if you go back to the Breita says, Nafal kado below ha'amida. Nafal gemalo below ha'amida. So the Breita is talking about a case where you had a chance to pick it up and you didn't pick it up. Right? The Breita isn't saying, at the moment it fell, are you chayiv? The Breita is saying there's a debate about when you had the opportunity to pick it up. So that's considered after it fell. So that has to be part of the debate. Okay? So you can't say that everybody would say you're patur because Rabbi Meir says if you didn't stand up your camel, you're going to be chayiv. Elamai, so you want to say the opposite? After it fell, everybody says you're chayiv because you should have picked it up. But in the same case, with the camel that you didn't pick up, the rabbis say you're patur. So meaning, this point tells you why Abai said there are two debates. Because the Breita emphasizes that the problem was after it fell, you didn't pick it up. So you can't say they only debate at the time it fell, because the Breita makes it clear that part of the debate is after it fell. Okay, Elamai b'shas nefila, af b'shas nefila. The Kamashman can Abaye. Fine. Rabbi Lezer doesn't mean anything different than Abaye. He means not only do they debate after it fell, which is clear in the Breita, because the Breita says you didn't pick it up, which means that's the problem. They're also debating when it fell, and that's the Mishnah, and that's like Abaye. They're debating both when it fell and after it fell, and presumably two separate debates. One whether you're negligent, and the other whether you need to continue to own the boar. Okay, so that is Rabbi Lezer like Abaye. But now we're going to get what's probably the most simplest explanation, I think. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, who basically makes it about one debate. Rabbi Yochanan says, they debate after it fell. That's the Breita. You didn't pick up your camel. You didn't pick up your pitcher. They're debating what's the story after it fell. So the Gemara says, 1 minute. What would you say when it fell? Divrei Potter, everybody would agree at the moment of falling, it's Potter that you're honest at the moment of falling. The Hami Dekama Rabbi Yochanan Lekaman. Now, that's not a problem in terms of explaining the Bright and the Mishnah. The Bright and the Mishnah could easily be explained that the debate is everybody agrees when it fell out of your hand, you're an honest. Let's stop a minute and appreciate that would be a nice, good explanation of the Bright and the Mishnah. Remember before the Gemara said that according to Rabbi Meir, even if it dissolved in your hand, you'd be chayiv, and the Gemara couldn't understand how you chayiv if it's an honest. Maybe the whole debate is not at the moment it fell. The moment it fell, everybody agrees you're an honest. Everybody agrees you're potter. The question is, what's your responsibility afterwards? Rabbi Meir says afterwards you got to pick it up. Maybe even after you were mafkir it. It's your thing. You got to pick it up. Once you've had a chance to pick it up, you're chayav. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, if at the moment it fell, you putter, you remain putter, especially if you were mafkir. That would have been a nice debate. Maybe the whole debate is after it fell. When it fell, you were putter. After it fell, we're debating what degree of responsibility you have. So that would be a great read of the Mishnah of the Breita. The only problem is Rabbi Yochanan himself says something that excludes that as the position of Rabbi Yochanan. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan himself said, Lo tema masisin Rabbi Meir the Amar Nitka Posheya. Rabbi Meir dealing with a different Mishnah, not our Mishnah, a later Mishnah, says, don't think that later Mishnah is Rabbi Meir who says Nitka is Posheya. That shows that Rabbi Yochanan understands that part of the debate of Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim is whether you're negligent or not when you trip. Michlal Rabbi Meir Mechayev. You see that Rabbi Meir says that at the moment it fell, you're chayav because you are negligent. Elamai, so you'll say the opposite. Maybe everybody agrees that when it fell, you are negligent. Again, they're not debating when it fell, not because you're always putter. They're not debating when it fell because you're always negligent. You can't say that. Same point. Same point. Since Rabbi Meir says later, oh, that mission over there isn't Rabbi Meir who says Nitkal is Posheya, shows that he thinks that question of tripping, are you Posheya or not, is a debate between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. Clearly, the rabbis say that at the time it fell, you're exempt. So clearly, Rabbi Meir, from his own statement later, makes it clear that he understands that the debate of Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim is also a debate of whether you're negligent or not. So, okay, Rabbi Yochanan said, Rabbi Yochanan. So let's just stop a minute and appreciate, okay? At the time it's falling, that could be a debate of whether you're negligent or not when it fell. Is nitka posheya? Okay, that's one way of framing the debate. It's clear from what Rabbi Meir says later on that that's how he understands the debate of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. At least one way he understands it. Because he says, Rabbi Meir holds nitka posheya, Rabbi Meir holds it's not. Okay, that's one way of understanding the debate. Another way of understanding the debate is let's totally focus after it fell. Let's assume it fell ba'anas, okay? And then there's a reasonable question. If it fell ba'anas and now you've had a chance to pick it up, what's your degree of responsibility? That, by the way, could be the Breita. It actually could work very well. The Mishnah could be talking about when it fell, are you poshay or not, right? But anyway, let's say, so one way to frame it is that when you're honest, even if you're honest, are you responsible if you don't pick it up afterwards? But so that's two ways of explaining, okay? But if Rabbi Yochanan wound up saying both ways, so since he said that according to Rabbi Meir, you're like, according to, so how is he going to sort of synchronize the two? According to Rabbi Meir, you're chayav because you're poshay. According to Chachamim, you're patur because you're honest at the time that it fell. So then what's the next part of the debate if you didn't pick it up, right? So, what? Well, that's going to be, so the next part of the debate really isn't going to be a second debate. It's really going to be an extension of the first. So let's just read that, okay? Hold on, get the question in a minute, but let's just read that. Ella says Gemara, ha kamashmulam, when Rabbi Yochanan is saying the debate is after it fell, what he's telling you is the mafkir nizak of the hacha hu de patri rabbana, the anasu. The reason it's a case of mafkir nizakav, and that's why the rabbis say you're pater, because you're an anas, because you weren't at fault to begin with. And since you weren't at fault to begin with, and now you don't own it, that's why you have no responsibility. That's why if you didn't pick up your camel, you have no responsibility. You didn't pick up your pitcher, you have no responsibility because you weren't poshay to begin with, and now you don't own it. Avamafkin is of the alma, but if after it fell with negligence you were mafkiret, mechayev, you would be chayev because that's like digging a bore in Rishus Harabim. If you created it with negligence, you're chayev. So that's the easiest way to explain. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Okay. Basically, I don't know if I was going to get too complicated, but anyway, so here's shot nefila, okay, and Rabbi Meir says chayav, and Rabbi Yehuda says pater, okay, and that's the case of that. That's really sort of, if you want, that's like the case of the Mishnah, okay, because that's the case. It just says, whatever. The Mishnah doesn't emphasize you didn't pick it up. The Mishnah just says somebody was damaged. So that sounds like shas nefila. Okay, so we say, what is this a debate? This is a debate of whether nitkal posheya, okay, are you considered to be negligent when it fell? Okay, that's shas nefila. And then the Breita says, right, below ha'amida, which means that the problem was achar nefila. The problem was that you didn't pick it up. Okay, and how much do you have a responsibility for picking it up as well? Okay, and there Rabbi Meir says also chayav and Rabbi Yehuda says pater. So what's that second debate? Okay, so Abaye said this second debate is in a case of pshia, and it's a question that even when you were negligent, maybe if you don't own it now, you're pater. A completely different point that even if you were negligent in making a bore, if you don't own the bore, it's a bore b'rshus harabim, not a bore b'rshus, so you are mafkir and you don't own it, you're going to be pater. Completely unrelated debate, which is hard to read in. Okay, what Rabbi Yochanan is saying is, no, this is really not a second debate. It's an extension of the first one. This is a case of mafkir nizakov, okay, which Abai said Abai said also. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's an extension of the debate. Since you were mafkir it, if it started with pshia, you remain chayav. If it started with onus and now you don't own it, even if you've had a chance to pick it up, you remain pater. It's an extension of this. But that's only because they're only debating this because it started with a case of nitko. But if it started with a case of pshia, okay, if you were actually had a case of pshia and then you were mafkir, okay, everybody would say you're going to be chayav. Okay, it doesn't matter that you don't own it. You don't need to own it. You need to be at fault. Okay, so the reason mafkir is significant here is because it removes your being at fault for Reb Yehuda. You're honest here, and you didn't own it, so you don't have a responsibility to pick it up. You remain faultless, right? But if you started with fault, everybody would agree mafkir won't get you out of it. Okay, so this debate is really just an extension of this. And what it's just saying is for Reb Yehuda, you will remain pater as long, even if you didn't pick it up, as long as you don't own it. But if you do own it, right, there are two ways you're going to be chayav for Reb Yehuda. Either you own it, okay, here you don't, you're mafkir, okay. If you own it, you're going to be chayav because then you should pick it up. That's one scenario. And another scenario is pshia and then mafkir, and you're going to be chayav because of your original negligence. You need one moment of negligence, okay? But if it fell and you were an anus, because we say tripping is an anus, and then you were mafkir, so you don't have any responsibility to pick it up, those are the cases within Reb Yehuda that you're going to be pater. A very nice read of the two cases. Yes.
Some of these issues were involved when the Congress passed the Superfund law. Companies would mafkir their hazardous waste sites, and they changed the laws to go after those companies.
Even after they were mafkir.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Jenna.
So, but Rabbi Meir, when he in saying nitkal posheya, he doesn't give that leeway window of being able to like
pick it up,
yourself up and
because you were posheya of the original creating of the bore. So even if you didn't have a chance to pick it up, you were at fault that the very stuff was on the floor to begin with.
Right, but we're still saying it's not intentional. It's
right. You don't need to be intentional. You just need to be negligent. Okay. Right. That's what this whole thing.
I could just imagine a situation where someone would say, even though you're at fault,
right, that creating the bore has to be intentional.
There needs to be a reasonable amount of time in which you can like pick yourself up. And
but we're not saying that. I mean, if I dug the bore and I didn't have a chance to fill it up and somebody fell into it, I'd be chayav. Right. So we're saying the same thing. If I created it through negligence, I'm chayav.
So we're basically eliminating the difference between posheya and
kavan.
And
In the biggest thing, other than let's say chayav for boshek or whatever it is, it's all really here about negligence, not about intention. right? That's
It's just
the
weird
dominant thing,
that
right?
would be
Right.
why have the three categories if we're just going to read Koshea.
Yeah, but that is the dominant principle. You're right. The Torah talks about, for example, making a fire intentionally, making a bore intentionally. But for us, it basically becomes an issue of negligence. Okay, so let's keep on going. So the Gemara says like this. Itmar, it was said, okay, Mavkin is Zakah, Rabbi Yochanan, Rebbe Lezer, Chadam are Chayev, Chadam are Potter. All right, so now, Vema, so it seems like what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Man de Mechayev to Rabbi Meir, Uman de Potter to Rabbanan. Right, that this is the debate of Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan, whether Mavkin is Zakah you're Chayev or not, okay? So the Gemara says, no, I'll leave it to Rabbi Meir, Kolei Amalo Pligi. According to Rabbi Meir, that if you're a Nitkal Posheya, everybody would agree that you remain Chayev, because you had that original Pshia, even if you're Mafkir afterwards. Keep Pligi, you'll leave it to Rabbanan, that when you're Nitkal, you're an Anas, okay? I'll leave it to Rabbanan. Man de Pater Rabbanan. So you were originally not a posheya, and now you don't own it, so you remain exempt. Uman de mechayev amar lecha, and the one that would say you're chayev when you're mafkir your nizakav would say to you, anadam yafil rabbanan. In general, I could go like the rabbis that normally say that you're exempt when you're nitkal, and then you're mafkir. Ad kan lepatri rabbanan b'mafkir nizakav dahacha mishum da'onasu. When did this just clarifies things we said before? When did the rabbi say you were putter, meaning the rabbis, Rabbi Yehuda, when you're mafkir nizakav? That's by nitkal, because nitkal is considered not to be negligent. So you weren't negligent here, you weren't negligent here. Avol mafkir nizakav da alma, but let's say there was real negligence, and your thing is in the Rishus Rabbin, and you're totally negligent about it, and then you announced ownership. Mechayev, that I would say you're chayev, because that's basically the question of, do you need to own a bore or not? So what we're now saying is, however you discuss the debate of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yochanan are debating a case where you were real negligent, you left your hazard in Rishus Rabbin, you left your knife sticking out in the middle of Rishus Rabbin, and then you were mafkir, okay? So that is the basic question, not about whether there was negligence initially. That was the basic question of, are you chayiv, only chayiv if you own the bore or not? All right? So even the rabbis that normally would say that you're putter, here you're chayiv because you created it with real negligence. All right. So the Gemara says like this. Tistayim, let's conclude. Rabbi Lezer Hudam chayiv. Rabbi Lezer would say you're chayiv, which means, again, remember the real question here is, do you have to own the bore? You created it with negligence and now you are mafkir. Do you have to own the bore? Let's say that Rebbe Lezer is the one who says you're chayev. There are two things you don't really own. But the Torah treated it as if you did own it to make you responsible for it. The Eluhain, these are they. A bore in the public domain, and chametz from the midday of Pesach onwards. You don't really own it because it's asur behana. If it's asur behana, you can't really have ownership over it, but it's enough yours that you're liable for having chametz in your possession. Okay, and a bore in Rishut Rabim, you dug it, but you don't own it because it's dug in the public domain, but it's still considered your bore. You own it for this purpose to be liable. So what's point is again, now what we're really just debating is, do you have to own the bore? So since Rebbe Lezer says you're chayav for a bore in Rishut Rabim, it's like you own it. You don't have to really own it. Okay, you are liable for having created the hazard, even if you don't own it. And Rabbi Yochanan would say, no, you're only chayiv if you actually own the bore. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Umiyam Rebbe Lezer hachi. Now, does Rebbe Lezer really say that you don't have to own the bore? I'm a Rebbe Lezer ipcha. We see that he says the opposite. Now, we teach in a Mishnah. You're turning over dung in Rishut Rabim. And because, animals poop in Rishus Rabbin and you want to use the dung for your fertilizer. So you're hoping to take possession of it. Who's up then? Acher. And as you are turning it over and moving it, some other person slipped on it and got damaged. So it basically becomes your bore now. Does your turning over of the dung make it your bore? Okay? Chayev b'niskal. You're chayev. The Amar Rebbe Lezer, lo shanu el shniskavin lezakos ben. That's only if you try to take possession of the dung. Then it's your bore. But if you moved it without taking possession, potter, you're exempt. Now, why is that? If I moved it from place A to place B, I created a bore in place B. Even if I didn't take possession of the dung, I created a bore. So if Rebbe Lezer says I have to take possession of it, it sounds like for Rebbe Lezer, I'm only chayev on a bor that I own. Okay? Alma, you see, mafkir nizakav pater. If you don't own it, even if you were negligent, you're exempt. So doesn't that show you that Rebbe Lezer says you have to own the bor? So Amar Avad Bar Ava, no. Shechzira lim koma. Here's the story. Here's why you have to own it in that case. Because you picked up the dung and you moved it, and then you said, nah, you know what, I'm not going to bring it home. And you put it back where you got it from. So you didn't dig a bore. So if you didn't dig the bore because it's back where it started from, you're only chayiv if you took possession. So in general, he says you don't have to own it if you dug it. But in this case, you didn't dig it. You picked it up and you put it back. So in this case, you're only chayiv if you own it. So Amar Ravina, what would that be like when you removed it and put it back? And we're saying that you're not liable if you don't own it. The Motzi Bor Meguleh, let's say you were walked in Rosh Hashanah and you found an uncovered pit. The chiso, and you decided to do a public service and you covered it. And then you said, nah, to heck with it, and you removed it. So in that case, are you chayiv for digging a bore? Or do we say, you know what, you just reversed your action, you didn't really do anything net, you didn't do anything, and it's not your bore, it's the original owner's bore. So here too, I moved the dung, I put it back, I didn't take possession, it's not mine, I didn't do anything, and that's why you're putter, because you didn't dig the bore. So, Amalei Marzuta Braid Rav Mari Ravina, mi dami. No, you can't compare the cases. Hasam, lo istalik lumasa risha. When you covered the bore, when you put the manhole cover on the pit, you didn't really erase the bore. There was still a bore there that was covered. So the first person's bore, it was still his bore. And then you took off your cover, it remained the first person's bore. But in this case, when you remove the dung, istalik lumasa risha. The first person's bore doesn't exist anymore. You moved it out of the place. It's not like you put a cover on top of it. You completely eradicated his thing. So even when you move it back to the original place, you've now created a new bore. Okay? Hello, dummy. If you want to make an analogy, here's the analogy. Elamotzi bor megula. You walk in Rosh Hashanah and you find a pit. V'timama. You're going to do a public service and you fill it up with dirt. And after filling it up with dirt, you say, to heck with it, and you dig it again. Now, in that case, you've made a bore. Okay, you erase the first person's act, you made a bore. So here too, you move the dung, you erase the first person's act, even if you put it back, it's your bore. So I don't understand, according to Rebbe Lezer, why is it, if you don't need to own the bore, if digging a bore is enough, why is this not enough, moving the dung and putting it back? So the Gemara says, the Kamma labor is your dough, and then it becomes yours. Elam Ravashi, here's the scenario where you haven't made a new bore. You basically, you never really fully removed it from its place. You lifted it up less than 3 tefachim. So we say things that are less than 3 tefachim are still like they're connected to the ground. So you didn't fully fill up the bore yet. You know what I mean? You just moved it a little bit off the ground and then you put it back. So in that case, you really didn't do anything. And if you didn't have intention to take possession, you don't own it and you didn't dig it. All right? And that's why. But technically for Rebbe Lezer, you don't have to own it. This was a case, though, where you had to own it because you didn't really dig it, because you lifted it up a little bit and put it back. So now the Gemara says, Umay duchkid Rebbe Lezer, l'ukma kagon shahafta lepachos migimel, the time of the kinis kavan liskos ba, ha'enis kavan liskos below. The Mishnah just said that you're chayav if you move the dung. So what made Rebbe Lezer say, oh, it's a case of less than 3 and you're only chayav if you take possession? Why did he create that funny scenario? Just say, you don't have to take possession as long as you move it as long as you seriously remove it from its place. Okay, why did he assume it was less than 3 and you didn't do anything and only if you take possession? Look, let's say the Mishnah is talking. You lifted up the dung more than 3. And then even if you don't intend to take possession, right? Why did he say you have to take possession? Why did he assume, according to this way that you're explaining him, why did he assume you didn't really move the dung and it's only if you take possession? So Amarava, Masnisa Kashisi, the language of the Mishnah bothered him. It says if you're turning over the dung, turning over suggests that you haven't really moved it significantly. If you really had removed it from its place, it would have said if you lifted up the dung. So by saying turning over, for him that meant it was still basically in its original place. Elishmamina kol hafach, turning over, lamata mishloshahu. Okay, it's under 3. So therefore, what have we said? We'll pick up with this tomorrow. Unfortunately, we have a little bit left to go, but we're already a little over. So we'll wrap up with this tomorrow. But the basic thing that we have said is, okay, Rabbi Linzer and Rabbi Yochanan are debating being mafkin zakav after negligence. Okay, so and therefore the question really is the bor that you're chayav on only a bor that you own? So we assume that since Rabbi Eliezer says that there's things you don't own that you're chayav for, and one of them is a bor b'shut rabim. So it seems very clear that Rabbi Eliezer says you do not have to own the bor. Why does he say you have to own the dung? That was in a case where he understood the Mishnah to be you didn't really move the dung so much, so you didn't really dig the bor, and therefore you have to own it. But if you really did move the dung significantly and you did dig the bor, you don't have to own it. So Rabbi Eliezer says you have to own it. Excuse me, you don't have to own it. It's enough to dig it. And presumably Rabbi Yochanan says you have to own it. But we're going to see tomorrow whether we're going to stay by that way of framing their debate. Okay, so we continue tomorrow.
Cliffhanger.